Hi there, I'm Gideon Rose, and welcome to another edition of Foreign Affairs Focus. Today we have the great privilege of talking to former National Security Advisor Tom Donilon, one of America's most distinguished and experienced public servants who served under 3 different presidents, and most recently in the Obama administration as the president's chief foreign policy aide. So Tom, let's talk a little bit about the rebalancing, what used to be also called the pivot to Asia. Why did your administration put this policy in place, and what is the status of it now?
Yeah, well, the policy was put in place at the outset of the administration, and when we came into office, as you would imagine, we went through an exercise asking ourselves where we were overinvested and where we were underinvested in the world, where we wanted to change the footprint in the face of the United States in the world. We determined that from a geographic perspective, and there are a lot of elements to this, from a geographic perspective that we were overinvested in the Middle East, particularly with respect to military operations, but that we were underinvested in Asia, and that we were underinvested across a range of dimensions, and the President set about to adjust and to rebalance to Asia. Now, it includes, as I said, a range of things that we put in place, not just military security aspects, although those are important, and so we have deepened our alliances there, and we've taken a number of steps in terms of a presence in Asia from a security perspective, but also includes diplomatic efforts, institution building, and economic efforts.
We've talked about rising China and the U.S.-China bilateral relationship, which obviously is something you try to manage very carefully in Washington. Do you also worry about China's relationships with other powers? Are you worried about Chinese-Japanese relations or Chinese actions in the South China Sea more generally?
Very much so. A productive and constructive and engaged relationship with China was an essential part of the rebalance as well. We have obviously partners and allies in the region, and they look to us to support them, meet our obligations, provide the kind of security platform that we've provided out there for over 6 decades, but they also rely on the United States to have a productive and constructive relationship with China, and that's another aspect of the obligations that we have. So we do engage with China, and we are seen by our allies and partners as having that obligation. Now, we very much are concerned about a number of the dynamics in Asia, including between and among various countries, especially right now in Northeast Asia, where there really are very high tensions.
And so do you try to manage those, or just stay out and hope they turn out okay?
Well, we certainly encourage a peaceful resolution of these tensions. And it is not constructive in Asia, for example, to have the current level of tension between China and Japan, the second, third largest economies in the world. And the United States obviously encourages calm and peaceful resolution of issues among these countries. Now, you had, for example, most recently, a step by the Chinese which really did unnecessarily raise tensions, and that was a declaration of an air defense identification zone. In that case, the United States said we wouldn't recognize it. We reinforced and restated strongly our commitment to our ally Japan, and called upon Japan and China to find mechanisms to discuss this.
During the Cold War, the United States' biggest enemies it didn't have much trade with, and its biggest trading partners were democratic allies. Yeah. Now, as you look forward with China, we're in a kind of rivalry in which we're trading with the enemy, or at least our rival in certain respects. Does that complicate matters in terms of managing the relationship?
Well, there are competitive and cooperative aspects to the relationship between China and the United States, and it's a complicated and varied relationship. And the economic relationship is an important part of that relationship. It's very different as compared to the relationship between the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States undertook a policy of containment with the Soviet Union, isolating the Soviet Union. In sharp contrast, of course, we have a $500 billion a year trade relationship with China. It's entirely different, an entirely different approach.
And yet you hear the Chinese worry that we are trying to contain them or block their rise.
Yes, yeah, and in fact, of course, the truth is that for presidents since the mid-1970s, we've had across bipartisan administrations, we have undertaken to integrate China into the world economy and into the world international system, and have done just the opposite, frankly, with respect to containment. What the United States is doing, though, in Asia, and it's important, is again reinforcing the role that it played for over half a century in Asia. And that has been, Asia's benefited from that. Of course, the principal reason that Asia has undergone this great social and economic development has been the work of their people. But the United States has played a key role, and the Chinese understand this, that the importance of the United States being, kind of maintaining that platform out there is very, very important. And the rebalance, of course, was a reaffirmation of that traditional role, as well as a declaration of the interest going forward that we share with Asia, the most economically dynamic place in the world.
You talked about economic dynamism. Yeah. Is the Trans-Pacific Partnership a trade pact that you helped shepherd in its early stages? Is that a key part of this dynamism?
It is a key part of the dynamism going forward, and it's a key part of the rebalance. As I said, the rebalance has a number of elements to it: security, political, diplomatic, institution building, but it also has an economic element to it, a win-win element to it with respect to economics as well. And the Trans-Pacific Partnership is the centerpiece of the economic element of the rebalance to Asia. It's a really important part of our rebalance, and it's a really important element of U.S. leadership in the region.
Do you worry that Congress might block that by not giving the president trade promotion authority?
I'm concerned about that, and I think that in fact that the United States Congress should pass trade promotion authority that can support what's going to be a really important agreement in Asia. So it's the most important trade negotiation underway in the world. It's an important element of U.S. leadership, and I think the facts are that it will inure to the economic benefit of the United States.
In the long run, are you optimistic or pessimistic about the U.S.-China relationship?
I think that there are responsibilities on both sides here. As you know, there's one school of thought which would argue that in fact that there is inevitable conflict between a rising power and an existing power. I think the historical analogies there don't fit, and I think that I'm a strong believer in human agency and leadership, and I think with wise leadership that we actually can find and will find a constructive relationship between the United States and China going forward. It's been, the relationship that we have today with China couldn't have been imagined at the time of the opening to China in the 1970s in terms of its scale, the things we work on together, the exchanges we have, the depth of our relationship. And it's absolutely critical for us, I think, to continue to stay on that path and very consciously work through the competitive aspects in a constructive way.
It's a good place on which to end. Thank you very much, Tom. Tom Donilon, talking about the U.S.-Asia relationship.
Great. Thanks, Gideon.